Welcome to the den, everyone, and today I'm going to be talking about the most overrated player in each team in the NFC North and their most underrated player in each team in the NFC North. So let's start with the underrated. So in my opinion, the most underrated player in the NFC North for the Detroit Lions, in my opinion, it's a big battle between Tracy Walker and Tyrell Williams. But I'm going to do Tracy Walker. Why am I going to do Tracy Walker? Well, let's look at Tracy Walker in 2019. I feel like everyone kind of acknowledges that Tyrell Williams is at least good when you mention him, or they remember the 1,000-yard season. But Tracy Walker in 2019 had 103 tackles in 13 games, with 8 passes defensed, and he had an interception. That's pretty dang impressive. If we go to his game log in 2019, come on, load. Oh, my little buttercup. She has the sweetest smile. Okay, there it is. Look how many good double-digit tackle games, or at least close to tackle games. He had 10 tackles versus LA, 12 versus Kansas City, 13 versus Minnesota. He had 9 versus Arizona. He had 8 versus Denver. I mean, he had really good games. And if you were there as a Lions fan, you knew this guy did a lot for us. I mean, he had 2 passes defense versus A-Rod. He had 2 versus Kyler. I mean, he had 1 versus A-Rod again. He definitely showed that he can play really well. And this was during a Matt Patricia coach team. Imagine what he can do with a good coach. With 2 good secondary masters, Not Very Pleasant and Aaron Glenn. I think he's going to explode this season. I think Tracy Walker could be our breakout player on defense next season. And I am so excited to see what happens with him. And I'm going to be doing a video on Tracy soon. Next is the Green Bay Packers. Who is the underrated player of the Green Bay Packers? And I was kind of looking. It's kind of like everyone kind of respects Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon, Savante Adams, and Tanayan. You know, everyone kind of respects the Smith brothers. Everyone disses on King reasonably. But I decided to look, and I decided an underrated player is Marquise Vandalus Scantling. This guy had 20.9 yards per catch and 6 touchdowns and nearly 700 yards. The reason I think people don't give him all the credit he deserves is because of his drop issues. But this guy was a menace as a deep threat. I mean, this guy was just killing it. I mean, he killed teams. I mean, he was one of the... Look how good he did versus the Lions. 6 for 6, 85 yards and a touchdown. Killed it versus Jacksonville. 37 yards per catch versus Jacksonville. That's insane. This guy is definitely an underrated part. If he can get the drop issues down, Scanling's a very scary player for the Packers. And some of the Packer fans should be excited to see if he can get the drops down. And who knows, maybe he will. But definitely underrated parts of their team. Next is, I don't even have to look, I know it's Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is vastly underrated. He had 35 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, 4,265 yards, and 8.3 yards per throw, and a 67.6% completion percentage. And if we go to 2019 even, (26-6). If we go to 2018, 30 for 10. He's had a good touchdown pick ratio since his time in Minnesota. He was 70.1 in 2018. He's a good quarterback. Is he this almighty, he's going to save the team quarterback? No. I think that's agreeable with everyone. But he's definitely a good quarterback that people need to stop dissing every single play. Yes, he doesn't do good on Monday Night Football, but he's still a good quarterback. I mean, he's had some really good games throughout his career. I mean, It's just kind of the truth. I'm sorry, my internet's not great today. But it's just kind of the truth that he is a good quarterback. I mean, I don't see how people just keep dissing him. I mean, it's not easy to have a good touchdown pick ratio and have yards and have a good completion percentage. He killed us last year. 405 yards and 3 touchdowns. I mean, he just plays better than most people give him credit for. He doesn't really necessarily ever have a bad game unless it's, like, besides for Indianapolis. He just, is he the most explosive ever? No. But is he a bad quarterback? No. And people need to start giving Kirk Cousins more respect. Next, we have the Chicago Bears. I think the most underrated player on their team, if I'm being perfectly honest with you, it's really hard to kind of actually choose one. But I personally think a player that people are underrating last season was Jimmy Graham last year. Jimmy Graham had 8 receiving touchdowns last year. I mean, a lot of their players aren't really all that underrated if we look back. I mean, Darnell Mooney has gotten a lot of overhyped in my opinion. Anthony Miller, I mean, he's kind of where he should be. I mean, he has drops. Allen Robinson, everyone kind of acknowledges he's a fantastic player. David Montgomery, maybe also an overrated player, but still seen as a good player. Cajon, everyone kind of respects. Keem Hicks, everybody knows. Khalil Mack, everybody knows. Like, I really don't think that anyone else is really there. I mean, I was kind of debating maybe doing Cajon, Rooney Hicks, because everyone kind of forgot about him, but I feel like you don't get 8 receiving touchdowns and don't deserve any credit. Especially when you had a rookie tight end like Cole Kmet right there knocking at your door, and people are probably wanting to see what he can do. Alright, so now we go to the overrated part of the team. And we're going to start with the Chicago Bears. In my opinion, the most overrated player in the Chicago Bears is Jalen Johnson. You want to know why I think he's overrated? He allowed 5 touchdowns and had 107.5 quarterback rating. All the people do is look at the completion percentage, but he also allowed 694 yards. All they look at the completion percentage, not the fact he had a 17.0 missed tackle rate. Not the fact that he had a bad quarterback rating, not the fact he had allowed a bunch of touchdowns, not the fact he allowed a bunch of yards, just the completion percentage. And he wasn't even the number 1 corner. Imagine how many touchdowns he might allow as the number 1 corner. I am not excited to see what Jalen Johnson do. I think he's going to get exposed next year. I mean, he only played 13 games. Imagine how much more yards or touchdowns he might have allowed. I'm very concerned to see what happens with Jalen Johnson. I just think this is a very overrated player that people are just not ready to see that he's not as good as people think. Now, the most overrated player in the Minnesota Vikings. Very hard to do because I don't really think there's a player that's like crazy respected within the Vikings, but if I had to choose, it's Patrick Peterson. I mean, there's been a fair amount of hype I've been seeing from people as Vikings fans for this guy. He has 67.1% completion percentage and 5 touchdowns allowed on 622 yards. I mean, 662 yards. He hasn't really been good the last 3 years, other than maybe 2018 because of the completion percentage in yards. Still had 4 touchdowns. He's not the same player anymore, and it's kind of sad. If who knows, maybe it was because maybe it was because the Arizona defense wasn't good. That hurt him, but I think it's time to acknowledge Patrick Peterson is not the same player he used to be. And I'm sorry to say that, but he's definitely the most overrated player on the Vikings, in my opinion. Now, if we go to the Green Bay Packers, who's the most overrated player on the Green Bay Packers? I was kind of looking here, I'm like, okay, a lot of these players kind of deserve what they got. Jar Alexander is definitely top 5 cornerback. I mean, and Darnell Savage is a really good player, and Adrian Amos is a really good player. Kenny Clark is a really good player who here is overrated. And if I'm being perfectly honest with you, I think it's Robert Tanayan. If we look at Robert Tanayan, he only had 586 yards and 11 receiving touchdowns. 11 receiving touchdowns is fantastic, but his yards are really low. And I was kind of looking, none of his games, really, other than Atlanta, did he have yards. Most of his games, he had 25 or 50. He had 2 games. Oh, sorry, 3 games of being above 50. I mean, I'm not going to count the playoffs from counting regular season. That's kind of concerning to me. It makes me think he's only a red zone threat, and I do not think he's going to become. I don't think he's really a top 7 tight end, like some Packer fans have been trying to tell me. I don't know. I think he's overrated. Not that he's bad, but just I don't think he's going to be elite. I think he's going to have a regression season. I think he moves to 7 touchdowns next year. Now we move on to the Detroit Lions. Now, who's our overrated player? I was kind of looking. Everyone kind of laughs at all our players. So I was kind of trying to look. Okay, who's our overrated player? Who could it possibly be? Because we don't really have a player that I think people really praise that often. That's Frank Ragnow, and Frank Ragnow deserves his praise, along with Taylor Decker. So I was kind of like, who's overrated? Is it TJ Hawkinson? And so I kind of looked at TJ Hawkinson, and I realized, oh shoot, no, he had 723 yards and 6 receiving touchdowns, and was a top 3 blocker on PFF. And I kind of looked, he at least had 80 yard, 68 yard, 84 yard. Let's see, he had 65 yards, 59 yards, 53, 62, 56, so at least he got there. He got consistent above 50. He didn't have that 100-yard game yet, though. So was it TJ Hawkinson? I was kind of like, No, it's not TJ, because TJ improved massively on it. He had a 68% completion percentage his way. And he had so many uncatchable throws, too. And if you also look at Darrell Bevell, he refused to use him more than one big play. After the one big play, he just dinked and dunked it to Hawkinson on game plans. So I say it's not TJ. So who is it gonna be? Who is the player that is overrated among Lions fans, or even just Lions media in general? And I thought about it, and I thought about it, and I thought about it, and it is 100% Michael Brockers. Just kidding. I actually think it's Trey Flowers. My biggest reasoning for this, I'm just kidding, it's actually Michael Brockers. My biggest reasoning for Michael Brockers is people are acting like Michael Brockers is going to be this giant pass rushing demon. I'm not saying Michael Brockers is bad. He was a steal, and he's going to be a huge part in our team. But he's a 5-sack player, and that is it. He's never going to get past 5 sacks. What Michael Brockers is, he's a run stuffer. That is what he is. And Lions fans need to stop thinking that Brockers is going to be this insane pass blocker. Pass rusher. He's never. Let me just show you his pressure numbers. Michael Brockers, as a pass rusher, hasn't gone past 17 quarterback pressures last year. Fantastic as a run blocker. But he's not a pass rusher, and we need to stop thinking Brockers is going to solve our D-line problems. That's one of the biggest reasons why I think people need to start supporting Lee McNeil and Levi Opick, because Brockers wasn't going to solve our pass rush, because he isn't much of a pass rusher. And that's why I like the move. And that is my video. And who do you guys think is the most overrated and underrated players? And I don't know. I'm very indecisive on my Lions pick. Who do you guys think might be our most overrated player on our team? Comment what you would change, and see you guys later.